Hello, my name is Seth Houston. I'm the founder and CEO here at UQ Solutions. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time with us today. Today, we're going to share with you some data we have on jobs and major to career pathways data in the UQ's Market Analyzer. So without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, I'm going to share my screen here, which you should be able to see now. We have three sources of data in the Market Analyzer about jobs and major to career pathways. The first is College Scorecard, and this provides our first year earnings outcomes, so what students earned right after they finish college. And one nice thing is it's by program and by institution, which means you can look at the data both by geography, but also by market segment, see what's going on for schools that are like you. The data also includes information about debt, and we can calculate earnings to debt ratios, which gives us a nice perspective on the ROI for various programs at various schools. The second source is the American Community Survey, or ACS. This is administered by the US Census. This provides great data on major to career pathways. It looks at what students studied in college and what they did for work afterwards. It's organized down to the state level, so you can see it in a pretty detailed geographical way. We can see students' earnings over the course of their lifetime by their college major or by their job. We can also analyze data by race and gender, which is an interesting perspective. On the third data source is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which you probably know. It's called the BLS. This provides great data on jobs, job growth, and salaries. One nice thing about the BLS data is that it's very detailed in terms of its geography. We can look at data both by state and by MSA, or metropolitan statistical area, as well as rural areas. So pretty detailed geographical perspective. We can look at jobs, job growth, as well as salaries and wages by percentile, so medians and means, but also 10th, 25th, 75th, and oftentimes 90th percentiles there. So without further ado, let's jump into it. We'll look at these three data sources in order. All right, so looking at college scorecard data, here we have some earnings and debt data. This is looking at our sample university. This is a fictional small private college in Georgia, and their automated peer groups. This is going to be schools like them. So among schools that are sort of small to mid-sized private schools of kind of moderate selectivity, some programs that have higher earnings are the Doctor of Pharmacy, Allied Health, Masters in Nursing, some other programs like that. The ones over here have higher debt loads that students take on, so air transportation, Doctor of Pharmacy, these are the ones that are fairly high debt. So the ones up here in the upper left are high earnings and a low debt, so that's a pretty great deal for the students. Very nice ROI for these kinds of programs here. The ones out here have relatively high debt and relatively low earnings. So things like art, air transportation, law, a little bit higher debt, a little bit low earnings for this particular segment market. Down here, we have the ones that have low debt, but also low earnings, like music, religion, English, these kinds of majors down here. So that's one perspective on the data, looking at it by program for a given set of schools or a given market. Another way we can look at it is say, all right, I want to look at earnings and debt by school for a given program. So here I have the Masters in Nursing for the same group, the same automated peer group for Sample University. And so one of these schools actually is having much higher earnings outcomes for their students with a Masters in Nursing. Those are pretty high debt outcomes up here at Newman University. These other ones here have relatively high earnings outcomes compared to the others. It's all within a relatively narrow range, but certainly Otterbein and Shenandoah and Holy Family are seeing higher earnings outcomes for the Masters in Nursing students. Out here, we have Pacific Lutheran is having a little bit lower earnings outcomes and higher debt. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Here we have some kind of lower earnings outcomes. This is kind of nice to look up here. The Holy Family is achieving pretty high earnings for their Masters of Nursing students with pretty low debt loads. That's a great deal for them from the student point of view. So there's two perspectives on the college scorecard data. It's nice to look at earnings to debt ratios here. So Holy Family, the earnings to debt ratio is 3.3. They have very nice earnings compared to their debt load, whereas here down at Pacific Lutheran is 0.9. So they're earning much less compared to the debt that they are incurring for that program. All right, let's move into our second data source, which is the ACS. Here I have data for biology majors in Georgia. And so here we can see the top here, some quick overview information about what their salary trajectory is like. I didn't point it out to you, but if you looked at early biology and earnings, I think from the college scorecard, biology majors typically earn about $27,000 in this particular market. So that's pretty low, but biology majors do much better over the course of their careers because many of them become doctors. And so here we can see what they're doing and how much money they are earning. So 12.8% of biology majors in Georgia become doctors, and those that do make $260,000. So very nice earnings for those biology majors to become doctors. Over here, 5.1% of biology majors become college teachers, and they're making $67,000. 4.6% become elementary middle school teachers, they're making $43,000. So you can see kind of what the landscape of earnings outcomes, both in terms of the number of students going there, percentage of biology majors going to these fields, and what they're earning is by field for these biology majors. We can look at any major we want to, and any profession we want to, in any state that we want to, all kinds of data there. We also break it down by race and gender. As you can see, the early, mid, and late career earnings by these different income groups or different demographic groups. Okay, so that's some ACS data. We can look at this data as a table as well. We have, the 12.4% are becoming physicians. Here's their ACS earnings. Here's the job growth of their BLS jobs, which is interesting. And we can see their career earnings in terms of, early career, mid-career, late career for those biology majors who become doctors in Georgia, and how many BLS jobs there are. So really a ton of really detailed information here about the number of BLS jobs, the growth or decline of those BLS jobs, various BLS salaries in addition to ACS salaries. Here we don't see the BLS one because actually BLS hides salaries above $200,000, so that is not being shown here. But we have BLS data for most of these. You can compare that against the ACS data, which is nice to be able to do. So a bunch of wonderful data here. You can export it to Excel, looking at what's going on for biology majors in Georgia, but of course you could look at any major, any career in any state. All right, so here we have a Sankey chart. It's just a nice visual way to look at it. This is now looking at biology and chemistry majors in Georgia and what jobs they go into. You can see that, they're going to being doctors and post-secondary teachers and et cetera. It's just pretty much the same data, but of course we've got chemistry added here. We could also look to see, for instance, what majors are going into what jobs. You could look at, lawyers or doctors or whatever jobs you wanted to and see what majors are feeding into those jobs. All right, so let's look at now the BLS data. We saw a preview of it here in terms of what's going on with the BLS job performance by in this table here. But here we have BLS jobs in this particular state. Right now I've got the state of Georgia here, but we could look into more precise areas if we wanted to. For instance, we could look at some other areas in Georgia, such as Albany or Athens or Atlanta or Augusta, any areas that we wanted to, we could look at that way. And so here we can see that in Georgia, BLS jobs that are going the highest are software developers and project management specialists, as well as first-line supervisors of material moving workers, except for aircraft cargo. Some other jobs are going here, financial investment analysts and jobs like that, other computer occupations. We see some declines here in general and operations managers, as well as sales representatives and other jobs in Georgia. Now I did put a filter on here that's filtering by salary range. I'm not looking right now at the lower paying jobs, just looking at the higher ones that do require a college degree in most cases. So you can see that there. We could also look at this data if we wanted to by geography. You could say, all right, I want to look at project management jobs or software jobs by MSA or other geographical segments in Georgia. We could look at the data instead of by the number of jobs in terms of the salary instead. So all kinds of ways to look at it, whatever's most useful to you. But if you're contemplating a new program to launch at your school or thinking about your current programs, is which one's really lining up with the job growth, this is pretty powerful data to be looking at with that. I should mention that we are in the process of updating both for the 2021 BLS data, but also updating our look for these charts a lot too. So stay tuned. In the next few weeks or months, we will have a lot of that data for you. But this gives you a preview of it for now. So thank you for your time today. Really appreciate you looking at it. And again, my name is Seth Houston, founder and CEO here at UQ Solutions, and look forward to hearing from you soon.